Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. This is WireDogSec, back with another video for you guys. Today's video, we are in TryHackMe. This is the SOC Level 1 learning path. This is the Digital Forensics and Incident Response module. This is the Linux Forensics room. Learn about the common forensic artifacts found in the file system of Linux operating system. Now we went through the Windows Forensics 1 and 2 rooms. If you haven't checked those videos out already, I highly recommend going in and checking out those videos. As we're going through these videos, be sure to take notes. All right. There's a lot of information that's covered in these videos, and I want to make sure that y'all are thoroughly understanding the information in these rooms. As always, if you want to help support the channel, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you know every time I post to the channel. Without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into it. Task 1, Introduction. In the previous few rooms, we learned about performing forensics on Windows machines. While Windows is still the most common desktop operating system, especially in enterprise environments, Linux also constitutes a significant portion of the pie. Especially Linux is very common in servers that host different services for enterprises. That's correct. Linux pretty much runs most of the internet. In an enterprise environment, the two most common entry points for an external attacker are either through public-facing servers or through endpoints used by individuals. Since Linux can be found in any of these two endpoints, it is useful to know how to find forensic information on a Linux machine, which is the focus of this room. Learning objectives. After completing this room, we will have learned an introduction to Linux and its different flavors, finding OS account and system information on a Linux machine, finding information about running processes, executed processes, and processes that are scheduled to run, finding system log files and identifying information from them, common third-party applications used in Linux and their logs. Go through the learning objectives. All right, let's go ahead and get this started. Task number 2, Linux Forensics. The Linux operating system can be found in a lot of places. While it may not be as easy to use as Windows or Mac OS, it has its own set of advantages that make its use widespread. It is found in the web servers you interact with, in your smartphone, and maybe even in the entertainment unit of your car. One of the reasons for this versatility is that Linux is an open source operating system with many different flavors. It is also very lightweight and can run on very low resources. It can be considered modular in nature and can be customized as per requirements, meaning that only those components can be installed which are required. All these reasons make Linux an important part of our lives. Right, Linux is everywhere pretty much. It's in more places than you would even think about. A lot of IoT devices, I believe, run some type of Linux flavor on them, if I'm not mistaken. For learning more about Linux, it's highly recommended that you go through the Linux Fundamentals 1, 2, 3 rooms on TryHackMe, or you can check out my channel and review those videos on these particular rooms and take notes while you're at it. Linux distributions. Linux comes in many different flavors, also called distributions. There are minor differences between these distributions. Sometimes the differences are mostly cosmetic, while sometimes the differences are a little more pronounced. Some of the common Linux distributions include Ubuntu, Red Hat, Arch Linux, OpenSUSE, Linux Mint, CentOS, or CentOS, and Debian. For the purpose of the room, we will be working on the Ubuntu distribution, so let's move on to the next task to learn to perform forensics on Linux. Can you tell which distribution is represented by the logo in the image? Oh, okay, well, this is Red Hat, this is Ubuntu, Arch, SUSE, Mint, Debian, and I'm not sure what this one is. I don't think I've seen this before. Maybe it's CentOS, I'm not sure. But let's go ahead and continue on. Task number 3, OS and account information. As we did in the Windows Forensics rooms, we will start by identifying the system and finding basic information about the system. In the case of Windows, we identified that the Windows registry contains information about the Windows machine. For a Linux system, everything is stored in a file. Therefore, to identify forensic artifacts, we will need to know the locations of these files and how to read them. Below, we will start by identifying system information on a Linux host. So go ahead and click that Start button here. I've already done it myself. And it tells you how to access the machine via this here. You can also, I guess, remote into the machine using this information here, username, password. All right, OS, release information. To find OS release information, we can use the cat utility to read the file located at etc OS release. To know more about the cat utility, you can read its man page, man cat. The below terminal shows the OS release information. So let's go ahead and go to show split view and then open up a terminal and just type a couple of these out here. Okay, so we have our terminal pulled up here, and let's see if we just make this a little bit bigger here. So we're gonna zoom in. There we go. Let's go ahead and do, I'm just going to copy and paste like so, and let's see if it lets me do it. Awesome. There we go. Ubuntu, there's the version, and then the rest of the information there. And then they wanted us to do a man on it. So let's go ahead and clear all this out. And then man, cat, there you go. And then you hit Q to quit. Okay. User accounts. The Etsy passwd file contains information about the user accounts that exist on a Linux system. We can use the cat utility to read this file. The output contains 7 colon-separated fields describing username, password information, user ID, UID, or group ID, GID, or GIT, whatever, description, home directory information, and the default shell that executes when the user logs in. It can be noticed that just like Windows, the user created accounts have UIDs 1,000 or above. You can use the following command to make it readable. Okay, so if you just did it by itself, let's see what that looks like. Etsy passwd. There you go. As you can see there, it's still readable, but not as good as they have it here. So let's make it a little bit more fancy. And there we go. That's a lot more cleaner. All right, in the above command, we can see the information for the user Ubuntu. The username is Ubuntu. Its password information field shows X, which signifies that the password information is stored in the Etsy shadow file. And the UID of the user is 1000. The GID is also 1000. The description, which often contains the full name or contact information, mentions the name Ubuntu. The home directory is set to home Ubuntu, and the default shell is set to bin bash. We can see similar information about other users from this file as well. Okay, that's good to know there. Group information. Etsy group file contains information about the different user groups present on the host. It can be read using the cat utility, of course. So let's go ahead and fire this off to see what it looks like here. Okay, so we're going to clear all this out. There we go. We have quite a few groups on here, it looks like. We can see the user Ubuntu belongs to the ADM or admin group, which has a password stored in the Etsy shadow file. Signified by the X character, the GID is 4, and the group contains 2 users, syslog and Ubuntu. Awesome there. Okay. Sudoers list. A Linux host allows only those users to elevate privileges to sudo, which are present in the sudoers list. This list is stored in the Etsy sudoers and can be read using the cat utility. You will need to elevate privileges to access the file. All right, so let's see here if it lets us fire this off. So clear this off. Awesome, there we go there. So let's go up a little bit. Okay, so pretty much looks straightforward so far, right? You can also take note of this as if you're doing like some type of pen test or red team engagement or TTF. You might use some of these commands to look through the box that you're trying to escalate privileges on and whatnot. You know, use some kind of recon or something like that, right? Let's continue on. Login information. In the var log directory, we can find log files of all kinds, including wtemp and btemp. The btemp file saves information about failed logins, while the wtemp keeps historical data of logins. These files are not regular text files that can be read using cat, less, or vim. Instead, they are binary files which have to be read using the last utility. You can learn more about the last utility by reading its man page, man last. The following terminal shows the contents of wtemp being read using the last utility. So once again, if you want to use that man page, I don't think I've ever used this command on the Linux box before, so this is pretty new to me. But if you want to go through and read through all this, that's great. So I recommend go ahead and trying to familiarize yourself with this. I'm going to hit Q to cancel out of this. And then I'm going to fire this off here. All right, there we go. Authentication logs. And we can see there's a lot of information here. So we got, it looks like the actual event here, reboot, system boot, some other information here. We have timestamps here, and I guess the if it's running or not, crash, and some other information that could be useful. Authentication logs. Every user that authenticates on a Linux host is logged in the auth log. The auth log is a file placed in the location var log auth.log. It can be read using the cat utility. However, given the size of the file, we can use the tail, head, more, or less utilities to make it easier to read. So let's go ahead and just try cat and see if there's a lot of information in here. So let's fire this off. Okay, it's not too bad. Not too bad. But let's play around with it a little bit. Let's just up arrow and then replace cat with something like more, right? And you can try with like less, see if there's anything else there. Usually if this is like a huge file, you want to use more or less, right? So you can gradually go through the file. It's easier um, to review. Okay, that's probably why. Let me take out tail there and then try it again. There we go. So this is what I'm talking about here. Okay. Okay, and then clear this out, and we'll try this again with more, just to show y'all what it looks like here. Hopefully y'all are following along. If you're not, make sure you're taking notes. You can see there, hit enter, hit the space bar. There you go. Clear this out. Awesome. In the above log file, we can see that the user Ubuntu elevated privileges on March 29, 1749, 52. Using the sudo to run the command cat etc sudoers, we can see the subsequent session opened and closed events for the root user, which were a result of the above mentioned privilege escalation. So we can see that information here, right? We had to scroll over a little bit. So this is pretty neat information. Looks like we got some questions down here. So go ahead and try to answer these questions yourself, then come back to the video. So pause the video, try to go through these questions yourself, then come back to the video, and then we will go through it together. Hey everybody, this is WireDogSec. Just a quick reminder to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. Once you hit the notification bell, be sure to set to all notifications so you know every time I post to the channel, upload a video, all that good stuff. Let's continue to grow our glorious community here. We are in the cyber trenches. We're not just reporting on it. Be sure to check out my channel as well. I have tons of videos. You can see here over 300 videos ready for you to check out and learn something from. Be sure to review my posts. I'm frequently posting new things to my channel here, including jobs and everything related to that. Also, I have tons of playlists here that you can review, make it more convenient for you. Anyway, happy defending, happy hacking. Enjoy the video. All right, let's take a look at these questions. Which two users are members of the group audio? Now, remember, we can use cat on Etsy group to find that particular information. Now, what I did here was not only did I cat that particular area, I piped it into grep so I can search on particular information. And then inside of double quotes, I did audio. So I'm going to search on audio for those groups, and it should pull it up here. There we go. There's Ubuntu and Pulse. Next one says, in the attached VM, there's a user account named TryHackMe. What is the UID of this account? So for this one, I use grep as well. So let's go back and scroll up a little bit. Here, I did a cat on Etsy passwd, pipe that into grep, and then I'm searching on TryHackMe because that's the account we're looking for. Hit enter. There we go there, and then we have that information, 1001. Next one, a session was started on this machine on Saturday, April 16th at 2010. How long did the session last? Now for this one, I did sudo, and then used the last to run it on this WTMP file, pipe that into grep again, and then I'm searching on April or APR for those dates. Okay, and we can see this bottom one here is the one we're looking for. All right, April 16th, 2010, 2143, and then that duration is going to be 0132 for that. Okay, so task number 4, system configuration. Once we have identified the OS and the account information, we can start looking into system configuration of the host name. The host name is stored in the Etsy host name file on the Linux host. It can be accessed using the cat utility. So that's one way of doing it. So let's just follow along here and paste. So that's one way of doing it, and then you can just use host name as well to get the same information. Time zone. Time zone information is a significant piece of information that gives an indicator of the general location of the device or the time window it might be used in. Time zone information can be found at this location, Etsy time zone. and it can be read using the cat utility. So let's go ahead and run this. There we go, Asia Karachi. Network configuration. To find information about the network interfaces, we can cat the etc network interfaces file. The output on your machine might be different from the one shown here depending on your configuration. So let's go ahead and do that here. There we go. Okay. Similarly, to find information about the MAC and IP addresses of different interfaces, we can use the IP utility. To learn more about the IP utility, we can see its man page, so man IP. Once again, if you want to know more about a particular command or whatever, you can use the man page, right? So this is give you it in great detail, like everything. All right, so let's get out of this. Um, you can also just do use the help as well, but it's not as much detail. So if we did like IP and then help. So there we go there. Sometimes you can use like IP, it might be IP like dash H or like dash dash help for the long one for these commands, right? So let's go ahead and clear this out. Let's see here. The below terminal shows the usage of IP utility. Note that this will only be helpful in a live system. Okay, so IP address show. Let's go ahead and type this in. Awesome. Active network connections. On a live system, knowing the active network connections provides additional context to the investigation. We can use the netstat utility to find active network connections on a Linux host. We can learn more about the netstat utility by reading its man page. Once again, you're going to use man and then whatever you're trying to look at. So man netstat. The below terminal shows the usage of netstat utility, and this is the particular options or flags they're using here. So if you want to take like the man page, once again, you're going to use man and then netstat. Okay, gives you that gives you that information in great detail, and then you can just do maybe netstat dash h. There you go. All right, so let's go ahead and continue on real quick. All right. Running processes. If performing forensics on a live system, it is helpful to check the running processes. The PS utility shows details about the running processes. To find out about the PS utility, you can use the man. So man PS to pull that information up, and then you can run PS in the terminal here to find out some information in regards to running processes. So let's go ahead and clear this out. Also, one thing to note about IP, you can just type in IPA to shorthand it. You can get that information there. So just a little tidbit there. But let's go ahead and check out the man page for this real quick. Okay, these are pretty much going to look similar when we do man. You're going to get that great detail again. You know, once again, you can do like dash H. Oh, maybe that is a actual option or something. Let's see here. Okay, interesting. Anyway, so let's go ahead and just type in this. So that went back by pretty quickly. So like I said earlier, if it does that, then what you can do, you can pipe that into more. You can just use more on it. So just pipe this into more or less, whatever you want to use. Okay, and you can just gradually go down the list here. Okay, we're going to exit out of this. All right, so we got that down. DNS information. The file etc host contains the configuration for the DNS name assignment. We can use the cat utility to read the host file. To learn more about the host file, you can use the man page. So once again, follow along. Man host. Gonna get that detail of it. Quit out of it. And we're going to copy and paste. So there we go. Says the information about DNS servers that a Linux host talks to for DNS resolution is stored in the resolve.conf file is located at etc resolve.conf. We can use the cat utility to read that file. So let's just go ahead and take a look at it. If it lets me copy. There we go there. So we see the name server down here, some other things as well. All right, so we're done with that. Once again, looks like we got some questions. Y'all know what to do. Pause the video, try to answer these yourself, come into the video, and then we will step through it together. Let's take a look at these questions. Now, if you're following along with the video, then you should be able to answer all these easily. I mean, we answered pretty much all of these as we were going through the particular information up above here. But let's go ahead and see. What is the host name of the attached VM? Once again, you can use host name or you can just cat that host name file. And here it is right here, Linux X 4 and 6. What is the time zone? So to get the time zone, you can use cat etc time zone, pull that information up, Asia, Karachi. Um, what program is listening on the address 127.0.0.1 and then on port 5901? So for this one here, you can use grep. I did a grep on that particular port. So I grepped it on :5901, hit enter, and there you go there. You can see the program there. It's going to be this X Tiger VNC. Next one says, what's the full path? So for this one, you got to use the PS command. So PSAUX, and I piped that into grep, and then I grepped on that program. So hit enter, and you can see it right here, the full path of it. So user bin X Tiger VNC. Now it says read about the flags used above with the netstat and PS commands in their respective man pages. So go ahead and do that if you haven't done so already. Hopefully you did it while we were following the steps above here. We're going to continue on to task number 5, persistence mechanisms. So let's get this ready to go. Knowing the environment we are investigating, we can then move on to finding out what persistent mechanisms exist on the Linux host under investigation. Persistence mechanisms are ways a program can survive after a system reboot. This helps malware authors retain their access to a system even if the system is rebooted. Let's see how we can identify persistent mechanisms in a Linux host. Cron jobs. Cron jobs are basically the equivalent of scheduled tasks in Windows, by the way. Cron jobs are commands that run periodically after a set amount of time. A Linux host maintains a list of cron jobs in a file located at etc cron tab. We can read the file using the cat utility. So cat etc cron tab is going to give us that information here, as we can see there. So let's check it out. It's on our VM. There we go. The above terminal output shows the contents of a sample etc cron tab file. As can be seen, the file contains information about the time interval after which the command has to be run, the username that runs the command, and the command itself. It can also contain scripts to run, where the script that needs to be run will be placed on the disk, and the command to run it will be added to this file. And we can see all the information here. It even tells you up here in examples, right? And then we can see the rest down here. Service startup. Like Windows, services can be set up in Linux that will start and run in the background after every system reboot or system boot. A Linux or list of services can be found in etc init.d directory. We can check the contents of the directory using the ls utility. So let's do that here and clear this out. .bash rc. When a bash shell is spawned, it runs the commands stored in the .bash rc file. This file can be considered as a startup list of actions to be performed. Hence, it can prove to be a good place to look for persistence. The following terminal shows an example of a .bash rc file. So let's go ahead and check it out real quick. Okay, there we go. We can see all information. Once again, if there's too much to go through, you can pipe that into more or less, whatever you need to go through it gradually. All right, so we have similar output there, so we're good to go there. And there's a lot of information. System-wide settings are stored in etc bash rc and etc profile files, so it's often a good idea to take a look at these files as well. One question here, and let's see here. In the bash rc file, the size of the history file is defined. What is the size of the history file that is set for the user Ubuntu in the attached machine? Right, so we can just cat that .bash rc like so here, and then we can see that information down here where it says for settings, history length, see yada yada yada. Okay, and the one you need here is going to be this one for 2000. So that's our answer for that one. Test number 6, evidence of execution. Knowing what programs have been executed on a host is one of the main purposes of performing forensic analysis. On a Linux host, we can find the evidence of execution from the following sources. Sudo execution history. All the commands that are run on a Linux host using sudo are stored in the auth log. We already learned about the auth log in task 3. We can use the grep utility to filter out only the required information. So let's just go ahead and follow along here. And y'all have been seeing me use grep all the way, so you should be familiar with it by now. Okay. Huh. Well, we didn't get any information like that. Let's see. The above terminal shows commands run by the bunch user using sudo. Okay. Bash history. Any commands other than the ones run using sudo are stored in the bash history. Every user's bash history is stored separately in that user's home folder. Therefore, when examining bash history, we need to get the bash underscore history file from each user's home directory. It is important to examine the bash history from the root user as well to make note of all the commands run using the root user as well. So let's do that here. We might just take a look at what they have in this little um, box here. So let's just do this. Awesome. So there we go. We can see all kinds of information. I did a lot of LSs and whatnot. Good information. Good information. Files accessed using Vim. The Vim text editor stores logs for open files in Vim in the file name .viminfo in the home directory. This file contains command line history, search string history, etc. For the open files. We can use the cat utility to open .viminfo. All right, so let's take a look at this. So there's that information for this one here, for them, a lot of stuff here. Once again, if there's too much, you can pipe it into less, more, whatever you need to. So we're gonna clear this out. All right, so more questions here. Let's see here. The user TryHackMe used apt-get to install a package. What it was the command that was issued. So we're probably gonna have to look at the bash history and see if we can find that. All right, there's a lot of good stuff in here. So we're gonna use grep bash history and then pipe it into grep. I love grep. This is like one of the most useful tools ever. All right, let's see if we get anything. There we go. Sudo apt-get install nettools. So I'm wondering if we need the whole thing here. Let's go ahead and see if they want. All right, that was not the correct answer. To get this first one, make sure you are in the correct location. So home, TryHackMe, and then do a sudo cat dot bash history, and then you can see the correct one is going to be this sudo apt-get install Apache 2. Okay. Now the second one here, I'm not sure what's going on with it. It wasn't working, as you can see down here. I'm not sure if I was doing something wrong, if there's something wrong with the box or whatever. Anyway, so I just took a guess. Home Ubuntu. Okay, so what was the current working directory when the command to install nettools was used? And even if you use this hint, it tells you to look in this auth.log. But as you can see, there's nothing coming up here. For both items here. So anyway, hopefully I had better luck than I did, but I'm going to continue on here. So let's clear this out. Task number 7, log files. One of the most important sources of information on the activity on a Linux host is the log files. These log files maintain a history of activity performed on the host, and the amount of logging depends on logging level defined on the system. Let's take a look at some of the important log sources. Logs are generally found in varlog directory. Okay, so syslog. The syslog contains messages that are recorded by the host about system activity. The detail which is recorded in these messages is configurable through the logging level. We can use the cat utility to view the syslog, which can be found in the file varlog syslog. Since the syslog is a huge file, it is easier to use tail, head, more or less utilities to help make it more readable. So they used head here, so we're just going to copy and paste this over. Okay. We know that's working. The above terminal shows the system time, system name, the process that sent the log, the process ID, and the details of the log. We can see a couple of cron jobs being run here in the logs above. Apart from some other activity, we can see an asterisk after the syslog. This is to include rotated logs as well. With the passage of time, the Linux machine rotates older logs into files such as syslog 1, 2, etc., so that the syslog file doesn't become too big. In order to search through all of the syslogs, we can use the asterisk wildcard. Okay, good to know there. Auth logs, we already discussed auth logs in the previous task. Auth logs contain information about users and authentication related logs. The below terminal shows a sample of auth logs, so they did head on it. So we're just going to copy and paste. There we go there. Okay. We can see above that the log stored information about the creation of a new group, a new user, and the addition of the user into different groups. So we can see that here, add user to group, yada, yada, yada. Okay. Third-party logs, similar to the syslog and authentication logs, the var log directory contains logs for third-party applications such as web server, database, or file share server logs. We can investigate these logs by looking at the var log directory. All right, so just basically just an ls on that, see what's all in there. Okay, there we go. It says, as is obvious, we can find the Apache logs in the Apache 2 directory and the Samba logs in the Samba directory. So the ls on this here. Okay, so let's go ahead and clear this out. Okay, I didn't even check to see if we even had that in there. But let's see. Yeah, we didn't have it. So, all right, so we can't use that one here, but you get the gist of it. You can just do ls on whatever directories in here to see what kind of logs are in there. So it's pretty straightforward there. Okay, so it says similarly, if any database server like MySQL is installed in the system, we could find the logs in this directory. So that's good information to know there. Answer the question below. Though the machine's current host name is the one we identified in task 4, the machine earlier had a different host name. What was the previous host name of the machine? All right, I'm assuming we're gonna have to take a look at these syslogs here. So let's go ahead and clear this out. We know there's syslog 1 and 2, so let's do cat syslog star. Okay, pipe that into grep, and then let's do grep on hostname and see if something comes up. Ah, I didn't do it correct. That's why log and then star. No such file directory. What? Oh gosh, I'm in the correct location. I got to put in var log, so don't forget to do that. Okay. Gosh. All right. Let's try this again. Oops. All right. There we go. So we can see here, so host name was changed right there. So the one before this is going to be the host name, and this looks to be it. Host name 1. So let's try that. Nope. All right, I'm not sure what's going on with this machine. There's just so many issues with it. But anyway, the answer is going to be TryHackMe. All right, I was running cat on syslog in there. I grabbed on various different things in here. I grabbed on host name to change it, and it said change from none to the current host name, right? But I even tried to look around here again, and I just kept getting errors and issues and whatnot to Linux. But anyway, the answer is going to be TryHackMe. Task number 8, conclusion. Well, that's a wrap for this room. Let's get out of this here. If you found it difficult to remember all the forensic artifacts, here's a cheat sheet. You can also download task files there, but feel free to check out this cheat sheet. I'm sure it'll come in handy as you're going through CTFs or even in the real world when you have to do forensic Linux boxes. You can stick around and find out what other exciting artifacts you found in the VM. You can let us know what you found interesting in this room in the Discord channel or Twitter account. Check out the cheat sheets and social links. Feel free to check those out if you're interested. We're going to wrap this video up. And hopefully you found the video valuable. If you did, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe with that notification bell if you want to help support the channel. As always, thank you all for taking the time to watch my video. Have a nice day, and I will see you in the next one.